Hey, well, here I am. It says I'm live according to my screen I'm looking at. Hopefully I am. That was the third try to load it, which is not too bad, I guess, given the past couple of months' efforts. But somebody tell me you can hear me. There he is. Driveway of Misfits. Mr. Chris, how you doing, brother? Cheers, guys. Good to be here. Good to have you all here. Who we got? 69 Coronet, 500. Hey, Chris Freemesser, Josh Homan, as always. Good to have you here, mate. Jeff R. Morning. It's raining in Adelaide. Had less than an inch all year. Wow. Charles Dalton. Hey, man. Driveway of Misfits. I actually have a tech question for you. Let's hear it. Old timer. Hey, man. How you doing? Steve Sadusky. Hey, bud. Welcome along. Carbide Jones. Wildman 318. Hello again from Northeast Pennsylvania. Hello. Beagle Bob. Good to see you, man. What's all been happening, everyone? No, I've been busy. Paul Funk, welcome along. We got a few in the room already. Good turnout, boys. Good turnout. Right, what's been going on? Hey, I had a good day. Hey, check out the new shirt. Woo-hoo. Seems applicable, don't you think? Right. Yeah, I had a good day. Delivered 2 cars. Delivered that Hemi-powered F100 today. So he's happy. Brought me a couple of bottles of bourbon, a nice bottle of Maker's Mark and Woodford's Reserve. So that's cool. The gentleman picked up his Mercury Comet. That's not really a Mercury Comet, so I found out. It's really just a Comet. But he picked that up and brought me a bottle of Angel's Envy. So, man, I am set. I'm looking at a good weekend. So, yeah. Yeah, it's nice when people do that for you. It's going to let you know they appreciate what you're doing for them. So it's fun. Driveway of Misfits. Replace brakes on an 85 Chrysler. Can't bleed the rears. Nearly zero pressure. Pedal feels okay when pressed slowly and faster. There's a hissing near the bottom of the travel. Internal master cylinder leak. Question mark. 85 Chrysler. Does it have a prop valve like the Chevys have? People call it a prop valve, but it's really a distribution block that has that little valve in it. There's a little valve, and Chrysler may have it, and this could be your problem. It has a little valve that if you get too much pressure from the front or the rear circuit, it pops it over, pushes the valve one way, and just sends all the pressure to the circuit that is working. So I wonder if it's something like that. I say I'm not really familiar with 85 Chryslers. I know on the Chevys, to make them bleed, there's a little tool you put down. You unscrew the little switch that triggers. You unscrew the switch that triggers the brake warning light, and you put this little tool in there, and it centralizes that valve while you're bleeding it, so it can't pop one way or the other. So you may want to look at that. It could be something like that. And I know it makes the Chevys a pain in the butt to bleed the brakes on. So, yeah. All right, what do we got? Okay, what do we got here? Steve Sadusky, nice 61 Mercury Kiwi. Yeah, it's a sweet old car, and it drives good. 69 Coronet, great shirt. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I like it. What are we all drinking tonight? Jack Daniel's apple bourbon. So I quite like that on the rocks. It's nice. It's not too harsh. It's a little, it's got a little bit of sweetness to it. Which just takes that harshness that can be there a little bit. John Oskowski, hey Kiwi, how you doing? I'm doing great, man. And you? Mark M, hi guys and gals, had to get my whiskey drink. Well, of course, priorities, man. Paul Funk's into the cause. Very good. And Jeff R, 4 bottles of bourbon may seem good at the time, but not after. Yes, well, that's true. That's very true. Driveway of Misfits, it has a combination valve. Is there any way that is causing your issue, like actually stopping pressure getting to the back? And of course, have you checked your flexible line, your rubber hose, to make sure that the fluid can actually pass through it? And I don't care how pretty it looks on the outside, you cannot assume that it's not swollen, like actually swollen shut on the inside and stopping the fluid passing through. I've had that before on more than one occasion. What do we got? I'm into Old Timer F7. I'm into the 18-year-old Glenmorangie single malt. Huh. Okay. Sounds good. 18-year-old should be good. Roy Miller, nice to see you, Kiwi. Good to have you here, man. Stray Bullet asking the same thing. Is there a factory prop valve? Yeah. That combination valve may be doing something similar to that. Any electrical wires go to it? That combination valve, is it a warning? Does it double as a warning? Warning light switch. Because if it is, if it has wires going to it that trip that warning light, then there's something inside it that moves under a pressure on one side of it and a lack of pressure under the other, and it moves one way to trigger that switch, but it also restricts the flow of fluid. Is there a factory? Rob Staudy's Garage. What do you think of the self-learning EFI kits? I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan. And a little bit of that, I guess, if I'm brutally honest, is a little bit of a fear of the unknown. Some people are running them and having good results. A lot of people are not. And that's kind of backed up by you seeing more and more show up, in places like, Facebook Marketplace, where people are taking them off and going back to carburetors. So that's an expensive exercise. If you go down that road, to me, it seems like those people are at their wits' end if they're willing to take off their $1,500 EFI kit and buy a carburetor just to get rid of it. Is not a good sign. The problem is there seems to be a lack of backup and a lack of knowledge around the place to get them tuned well. And while they say they're self-learning, they're only learning to a point. I believe, quote me on this, but what I've kind of garnered with the people I've talked to, that you need to be within about 80% to start with of the ideal tune. For it to learn and get to that 100% mark. But if you're a way off with your initial setup, then it's not going to go. It's not going to go, or not going to go very well, because the learning just can't. There's only it's only a certain size parameter that the learning extends to, and you've got to be within that for it to be able to work. So certainly there's a lot of advantages with it. I don't believe that the cheap Holley EFI, the throttle body EFI, I would not mess with that. It's too cheap. They're trying to bring a product to market that I believe is too cheap and just doesn't have the ability to deliver on the promise. The Terminator kit, from all accounts, is actually pretty good, but you do need to know how to make it run. It's like I just put a Pertronics electronic ignition in that Mercury Comet. That's pretty simple to do, but anyone pretty much can do that if you've got just a basic grasp. But the Holley Terminator, you kind of got to know. You've got to have a reasonable amount of smarts in that area to make it work. And Holley are not the best at answering the phone with their tech help, because they're kind of overloaded. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Old timer, but I got a bottle of Jefferson's Reserve and a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue just in case. Yeah, well, I mean, you don't want to run out, do you? But that would be terrible. The Lower Man's Vintage Garage on the Comet, was that a Ford 170 or a Merc specific motor? Now I'm going to say I kind of shot myself in the foot with that video, because what I didn't know, and a ton of people have chimed in on the comments, and that's okay. That it's not actually, that car is not a Mercury Comet. It is just a Comet. And as they've rightly pointed out, nowhere on that car is it badged Comet. And apparently it was created to be an Edsel. And then, was due to come out in 1960, the first Comet. And it was going to be an Edsel Comet, but then Edsel went tits up. And so, they had all these Comets and nowhere to sell them, because all the Edsel dealerships closed. So they then proceeded to sell them through the Mercury dealers. So yes, that car that I said was a Mercury Comet was not a Mercury Comet. It's just sounds a bit negative, but it was a Comet, not a Mercury Comet. So, but certainly looking at the engines, looking at a few parts for it, buying a few parts for it, it is a Ford 170, absolutely. I shouldn't say absolutely, but I'm 99% confident that it is the Ford motor. There doesn't appear to be any differences. When you look them up, when you Google them, you had the option of the 144 or the 170, which is identical to the Fords. The other Mercuries that I've dealt with, actual like Mercury Turnpike Cruisers and some of the bigger older Mercuries, they ran Y blocks, but they were always a different cubic capacity. They were different, as far as I can tell, for the sake of being different. Instead of a 332, they had a 358 or something, like an odd number like that. They just made them a little bit bigger and a little bit this, a little bit that, to differentiate themselves from Ford. But that little six-banger, it looks identical. The capacity is identical. So, yeah, I think that's a Ford motor. John Oskowski, does Mrs. Kiwi know that you have taken over the dining room? Well, she's not here, so she only knows if she's watching. But that's all right. When she's not here, it doesn't really matter, But at least I seem to get a better signal up here. So, and I don't have to try and break my neck carrying the computer downstairs. So, yeah. So here I am. What do we got? Fran XB. When I used to drink, preferred Crown Royal, originally known as Seagram's Crown Royal. It's a blended Canadian whiskey brand. Yeah, I've had it. It's nice stuff. Yeah, some friends of mine drink that, are big on that. Driveway of Misfits replaced all the soft lines. Shop manual says nothing about the combination valve affecting bleeding. Doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't. Okay, I don't know whether you've answered it, but yeah, back to that question: are there any electrical wires going to it? Does it operate a switch of any kind inside that combination valve? So that, if it does, I think that may be a problem. If it doesn't, I'm not too sure. The hissing noise is a little odd. Don't know what that is. Todd Denio, hey man, how you doing? The guy I'm buying a 69 Buick Electra from was in the hospital, so I'm picking it up on Thursday. Oh, well, hey, at least he's coming out, I guess. That's a good thing. I used to have a 66 Buick Electra. Is it a two-door or a four-door, Todd? The one I had was a two-door. Had the longest doors and rear quarters you've ever seen. Mark M, welcome along. Waiting on my new car I bought from Mexican Spec. Okay. A very cool 69 Dart GTS with the Mexican 270 horse. 318 Hogley. Nice. 69 Dart GTS. So that'd be the two-door hardtop, wouldn't it? GTS. Sounds nice, man. Old timer, John, I tried Crown a few days ago. It's bland now that I'm used to the more expensive stuff. Yeah, well, your taste do change a little. Steve Sadusky, I used the Blue Devil radiator flush and it worked. My coolant system is squeaky clean now. Thanks for the tip. Glad it worked for you, man. Yeah, I've put that in 3 cars this week already, which is pretty unusual. But yeah, we ran it through that Ranchero, through the Mercury, the Mercury, the Comet. That's not a Mercury. And what else did we put it in? Good Lord, I know I did it on 3 cars. Mustang, just a regular old 67 Mustang that I had in the shop just for the day yesterday. So yeah. Jeff, I'd better not join your drinking bourbon. It's 9:30 in the morning. Yeah, that might be a little early. Jeff, the Lord hates a coward. Poor one. Todd Denier, remember it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Well, that's true. Matthew, hey man, welcome along. Andy Nickel, good to have you here, man. Welcome along. Very cool. Paul Funk, Mercury had a Ford. Sorry, I only had like a couple of sips. Mercury had a 410 and the Ford had the 390. Yeah, exactly. They wanted to be a little bit better than Ford in as many aspects as they could, and some of the stuff they just changed purely for no improvement, just to be different. One thing I noticed on the Mercuries, most of the bolts and nuts holding a Mercury together are fine thread, and pretty much exclusively on the Fords, your Falcons or the Mustangs, it's all coarse thread. So I guess Mercury felt the fine thread was a little bit stronger. I don't. That's a theory, but yeah, that's when I restored that '64 Comet Cyclone, I was amazed. Every single nut and bolt in that thing was fine thread, and which aren't if you're trying to find some replacement bolts, that just makes it that little bit harder to find. They're just not quite as plentiful, the fine thread, and you've got to be that little bit more careful getting them started. They do. You can screw the threads up on a fine thread bolt, easier than you will with a coarse thread. So yeah. Chris Freeman said, it does operate a warning light. Proportioning is diagonal, left, front, right. Okay. And neither rear getting pressure for bleeding when pedal depressed. What could it be? I'd have to think that was a master cylinder issue. Like maybe you've got a bad one, because it does happen. It's happened to me. I had one master cylinder that was leaking out of the back of it, where the piston goes in, as I was trying to bench bleed it. Like, 4 strokes into bleeding it, there was more fluid coming out the back than there was coming out the sides of the master cylinder. It was bloody hopeless. So yeah, they definitely can be bad, because they are pretty cheap and there's no quality control. They just bang them together, and if there's a bad one, well. Yeah. So yeah. So I'd have to think it was the master cylinder. I mean, if you really want to put it to the test, if it's practical to do, you could switch the front and rear sections of the master cylinder, just reverse them, and see if it reverses your bleeding issue. That's a way of, obviously it's not correct. I'm not saying that's a fix, but it might kind of answer whether it's a master cylinder issue or something in the plumbing of the car. Josh Oman, they should have just split the difference and shared a 400. Well, yeah, that would have been easy, wouldn't it? It would have saved a lot of tooling, for sure. But that's not how it worked back then. Todd Denier, Kiwi, it's a 69 Electra 225 4-door with the 430 engine and low miles on it, just under 26 Ks. Wow. That's awesome. What an awesome car. Yeah. Yeah, my one, the 66, had the nail head in it, and it should have had a 401 nail head in it, but someone had actually replaced it with a 425, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, ridiculously huge car for a two-door. But yeah, that four-door will be, man, there's so much room in those things. It's wild. I think the most this is because I had that car back when I was like 18, 19, 20, something like that. And I remember one night, I think we had 12 of us in it, driving into town to go play. And yeah, it was, the things you do, yeah. Andy Nickel was wondering about the shift linkage on the Comet. I had several, 3 in the tree, and they all had worn sloppy shift linkages. Sloppy shift linkages. Try and say that 3 times fast with the bourbon. That shit was pretty good. It was pretty good. I mean, I think that car's showing showing 62,000 miles, and I have no idea whether it's 100, 200, or just 62,000 miles. I don't know. And the new owner doesn't claim, they're not claiming any super low mileage or anything. But it certainly changes. It didn't feel sloppy at all. It was actually quite easy to change gear. And you weren't looking for the gate. It just kind of dropped into place and went into gear. It was quite nice. What do we got here? Paul Funk, driveway, do you have pressure out of the master cylinder, out of both lines? Yeah, that's a good question. From what he's saying, he's not getting pressure to the rear, but yeah, you need to probably check whether it's coming out of the master. That's why I suggested switching the lines around. If it's practical, if you can just bend the lines a little bit, switch them around. They might have different size fittings on them too, which makes it a bear. But yeah, you do need to really be sure that the master cylinder is doing what it's supposed to. Because if it's not working there, it won't be working anywhere else in the system. Tim Miller, have you heard of a C4 transmission called a green dot shifter, 1, 2, 3, and drive manual shift factory 65 to 70 GT cars? Yes, I've heard of a green dot shifter, or green dot transmission. Now it is it's a regular C4 automatic with three speeds, just 1, 2, 3, not 1, 2, 3 and drive. Not really a manual shift the way the Mustangs did it anyway. And I don't know, if it's in a Galaxy or something, it may be different, but I don't think so. But yeah, the green dot, when you select the green dot, it takes off in second. It basically turns it into a power glide, and it uses second and third gear. They did it. They believed it was a fuel economy thing, believe it or not. And they realized that they were actually going completely the wrong direction. And the more gears you use, the less gas you use, which is why we got 8 and 10 speed transmissions now. Those 7, 8, 10 speeds are the main reason to have them is for fuel economy. That's why the factories put them in. So yes, and in the green dot, it used second and third, and then the white dot, the next click back, it used first, second, third. And yeah, so you basically just had 2 styles of driving it, but it was not a manual shift. I mean, you could shift it manually. You could go back and select first and click into second, and then went the second position, and then when you did that, it would then rev out in second and change into third. So not really a manual shift, but if I'm ever driving one of those, I just put it in the the second one back, the white dot, where it just uses 1, 2, 3. Like taking off in second gear just seems like a bad idea to me. It loads everything up and makes it work. It's like trying to pedal off on your push bike in top gear. It just makes everything work overly hard for no good reason. Yeah. Todd Denier, 62 Ford also had a 406. Yes, I've heard of the 406. Never actually, don't think I've ever laid eyes on one, but I know they're a thing. Lower Man's Vintage Garage. I had a bugger of a time bleeding the brakes on my 53 Jag. Finally ended up putting the rear up on jack stands to get the air out. Oh, wow. Really? Just, yeah. Okay. Huh. Fran XB for New Yorker. Don't really understand the question. Did I miss something? Maybe I missed something. Michael Welch. Ford did the fine thread also. Both switched 65, 66 to course. Okay. The Falcons I worked on, I didn't think they had fine thread. Might be wrong. I'm having a week of it, so yeah. Larman's Vintage Garage. Rear is actually up on jack stands. Okay. So now, did you say you were getting fluid out of the rears? I think you said you weren't, right? Either the master cylinder's not pushing it or there's something blocking the path of the fluid. That's really your two options. When you break it right down, it's either not coming out of that master or if it is, it's not getting the rest of the way there. Todd and I, worthless trivia. 58 Edsel, Mercury and Lincoln had a high-performance version of their 430 Mel engine. It was the first production car available with 400 horse. Oh, wow. Didn't know that. Oh, that's good trivia, mate. That's good trivia. Driveway of Misfits. It's the original master. I did order a new master tonight in case that's it. Huh. Okay. Oh, I wish I had a better answer for you, but I do. But Mark M. Researching the Mexican 318, I found that at factory they took 340 heads, 344 barrel intake, 340 cam, and a forged crank to get the 270. Some say closer to 300. Interesting. Well, it makes sense. The 340 heads and 4 barrel would definitely give it a boost. The cam better, crank stronger. Doesn't give any more horsepower, but it's stronger to get the 270 horse. Some say closer. Yeah. That'd be a neat little engine. Eagle Bob. Now I'm here for the rest of it. Got a burger and some Eagle Rare. What's Eagle Rare? What am I missing there? Victor Souza. Hey, welcome along, man. Good to have you here. Todd and I, Kiwi, the 425 nailhead was a great engine, 340 horsepower, 465 torque. Yep, good, superb engine. They went better than the cylinder heads would suggest they ever would have. The cylinder heads were an unusual design, obviously with that name, the nail head, but the shape of the ports and stuff. Yeah, I think if you just showed them blind to a race engine builder, he'd go, "What the hell is this?" Yeah, assuming you didn't already know. But yeah, that I don't think if you gave a high horsepower engine designer, a blank piece of paper, I don't think he'd come up with a Buick nail head. But in spite of that, they went really well. That one of mine went well. I raced that, believe it or not, and on the race on the drag strip, did the quarter mile, and it did 15.1 on the quarter mile, which was, for the size of it, was really pretty good. Where we got here? Mark M. Old timer Mark M. That sounds like a fun car. Yeah, it really does. Stray Bullet. The 410 is a 390 with a 428 crank. It was short-lived because the 428 took its place. That makes sense. Tim Miller, Ghost Street, my buddy, bump shift. Oh, yeah, C4. Got C4 for sale, green dot. I mean, good little transmissions. I just not a fan of the taking off in second gear. But I mean, all you got to do is select a different position on the shifter, and it turns back into a proper 3-speed. So yeah. Todd Denier, the 400 horse 430 mil engine was a 1 year only offering, and in 59 the power output was dropped. Oh wow, that was good horsepower back in those days, wasn't it? Getting close to that horsepower per cubic inch. And I seem to remember somebody once telling me that the 327 Chev was the first production. I'm probably wrong here, guys, but I do remember someone saying to me that the 327 small block Chevy was the first production engine to hit, 1 horsepower or more than 1 horsepower per cubic inch. So yeah, whether it was the first, I don't know for sure, but I remember someone telling me that. Randy B, new watcher for the past few weeks, and just want to say very interesting topics, and thanks, mate, for sharing yours and the others who comment in this thread. Well, thanks, Randy. Yeah, I'm glad you find it interesting. We certainly we digress into all sorts of odd things, which is cool, because the world does not revolve around old American cars, believe it or not. But yeah, it's fun, some of the stuff we've been rambling on about. Jeff R, what are you saying? The car was a Comet, not a Mercury Comet. Who made the Comet? Yeah, Jeff, that's exactly what I'm saying. That, but only in 60 and 61, those 2 years only, where it was just a Mercury. But it was, I mean, ultimately Ford did make it. It was a Ford offering, but it was never badged as a Ford. It was meant to be an Edsel before Edsel went bankrupt. So then it just got sold as a straight Comet, but it got sold via the Mercury dealerships, because I guess they probably didn't want to put them in the showrooms side by side with the Falcon, so they needed to put it in part of the Ford family, but not side by side with the Falcon. So they took it to Mercury. Probably wasn't luxurious enough for the Lincoln, dealerships. So yeah, Mercury it was, I guess. Yeah, and then 62 rolled around, and they were selling quite well. And Mercury, I believe Mercury said, "Yeah, we'll take that. We'll put a Mercury badge on it. It's meets their criteria, shall we say?" Yeah. So yeah, on the thumbnail for that video, it's like it's not a Ford, it's a Mercury, and it really wasn't. So yeah. A little more research before the video may have paid dividends there, but I never thought it was anything other than a Mercury Comet. And then when as the comments started dropping, I was starting to think, gee, I didn't see Mercury written on it. So yeah, I mean, it's awesome to learn stuff like that. For me, it is, and I wish I'd known before, so I could have, done the video without basically a big blooper in it. But hey, we're all human. I don't claim to know everything there is to know about American cars, or even close to it. So I know more than some, and clearly less than others. So, but you can't knock the passion for the American stuff. So yeah. Beagle Bob, Eagle Rare is a bourbon made by Buffalo Trace. Oh, I think you've mentioned that before, now that I think about it. Yeah. Right. Yep. Todd Denier, quickest performance car in 57 other than the Chrysler 300, 57 Rambler Rebel? Really? Huh. What's on it to be? Maybe 283. Yeah, I'm not the right person to be talking, performance figures from 60 years ago on GM products. I'm really not. But the 283, I didn't think they ever really went to town performance wise on the 283. It was a bit more of a reliable plotter. But I could well be wrong there. Victor Souza, do you prefer manual or automatic transmission? I'd have to say if I had to choose between one or the other, it would be a manual. It's nice at times just to drive lazy in an automatic transmission, like going to work and back when you're just putting through the rush hour traffic. Automatic's the way to go. The Audi I've got, that's automatic, and I do love that transmission. The way it works, it downshifts for you. It blips the throttle on the way down when you've got it like in sport mode and you're braking. The Audi actually blips the throttle as you change down a gear, so you don't get that stand on your nose kind of engine braking. And that's a lot of fun to drive, and it shifts quicker than I do, and it chooses the gears quicker and better than I do. So that's, but not all automatics. It's an eight speed, but not all automatics are like that. So if you're going to say like a turbo 350 or a C4, C6 or a manual, definitely a manual. 3-speed autos are just it's kind of a bit like a 3-speed manual, really. It's just not enough anymore. But manual, and it's nice if you're actually hardcore racing, like not just hooning around the streets, but actually racing, against the clock or against someone else. Having that manual transmission that you have that complete control over is for me is a must. Yeah. I've been rambling too long. The questions have shot down the page. Right. Charles Dalton, 283 FI Chevy hit 283, then 290. Chrysler did 1 horsepower per cubic inch in 56. Wow. 1 year before Chevy. Okay. Well, thank you, Charles. That's information I did not know. So which Chrysler engine in 56? So which Chrysler engine was that? I'm assuming it's the Hemi, but that would have been like a 354, was it? In 56? Yeah, probably a 354 would be my guess. Yeah. Todd denied 327 was not the first to hit 1 horsepower per cubic inch. There you go. See, I'm on a roll. I'm missing everything. That was some information that someone gave me many years ago, and I just swallowed it up and, oh wow, really? Okay, wow, and weird what sticks with you. And I've never looked at it or researched it because, as you guys know, like it's not that I dislike Chevy, but Ford's just it's a little bit more my world. What's on it to be? Funny how the Comet was a standalone at first, just like the Valiant was for 60. Yes, before it became a Plymouth. Yep, very similar story. Josh Homan, the original Valiants were built by Dodge, but they proceeded to be called Plymouth Valiants, though, didn't they? Again, if I've got that right. Todd Denier, Beagle Bob, I've been to Buffalo Trace. I've been to the brewery. Okay, that'd be cool. I've been on a few brewery tours, quite a few actually. Whenever we get like Kiwi visitors over, we usually take them to one of the bourbon places around, or one or two of the bourbon places around. So they're interesting little tours. Captain Desmo, welcome to the machine. Okay. Charles Dalton, none of us is as smart as all of us. Yeah, well, that's very true. Part of the reason I like this community, so much to learn and share. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, look, I mean, I'm regularly, doing the old ring a friend routine at work. When something bamboozles me, and I'm fortunate to have a network of some very clever car guys out there. Usually one of them can point me in the right direction, or we brainstorm it together and we go and we figure it out. So which is kind of what we're doing here, really. But yeah, I mean, I've already learned a whole bunch tonight already, and I'm it's cool. It's fun information to have. 6th Street Garage, I believe the Edsel and the Continental were supposed to be their own brand. Okay. Edsel I definitely knew was meant to be their own brand. That was the completely standalone. The Continental I didn't realise was ever separate from, and this is a Ford guy, I didn't realise the Continental was separate from Lincoln. So did Lincoln take on Continental by the sound of it? Fitzgeralding, good evening. In 57, the 283 fuel injected had 283 horsepower. Well, there you go. There you go. The horsepower wars were a thing, weren't they? Captain Desmo, can you tell me about the meaning of life? Yeah. No, I don't. I don't understand that. I don't have an answer for you there, brother. But yeah, it's a very good age-old question. Granddad's Junk, welcome along, man. What is it? Wednesday morning over there? Wednesday morning? Yeah, it must be Wednesday morning over there sometime. Good to have you here, man. Todd Denier, Edsel was its own brand. Yep. Stray Bullet, what was the production engine to achieve 100 horsepower per litre? Ooh, that's a tougher question. That's a good question. I know some of the smaller engines, some of the smaller European, like four-bangers, were making 100 horsepower per litre. Some of the Cosworths and stuff like that, quite a long time ago. But yeah, I don't have the numbers on that. Like they made a what was called a BBA Cosworth, and the 2 litre ones of those were making like 220 horse. So that was 110. When was that? Back in the 80s. So back when I was rallying. And 220 horse, man, that was a missile. That was a rocket ship. And they sounded fantastic because they pulled 9,500 RPM, with side draft Webers on them. And the induction sound at that high RPM sounded just awesome. Especially if it was in a rally car and it was coming at you down through the forest, with the trees either side of the road, that echo that it would make. Oh, they sounded so angry and mean and just like, whoa. Fabulous sound. Paul Funk, it's also good to chat. Good to chat to learn about booze. Well, that's right. It's all priorities, isn't it? Hey. Hang on. Drop down the page again. Yeah, I've lost where I was up to. Here we go. I found my place again. JR, a car that I don't hear much about or see anymore is a 66 Ford Country sedan. Narrow, but you could fit about 5 people and had room in the back. 66 Country sedan. So what was that based on? The Fairlane? Was that like a Fairlane station wagon? Oh, no, sedan, Country sedan. Yeah, not really familiar with that one, I don't think. Victor Souza, have a good night, sir. God bless us all. Well, hey, thanks for dropping in and seeing us. If memory serves me right, you're beaming in from Brazil, so yeah, have a good time over there, man. Pop's Mustang shop. My dad had a 66 Mercury Park Lane 2-door. Oh, that'd be cool. With a 410 Marauder. He taught me how to floor it on the highway and blow out the carburetor. Good memories. Oh, yeah, that is good memories, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. That would have had a bit of get up and go, the 410 Marauder. But that'd be a beautiful car. Mercury Park Lane 2-door. Wow. That'd be awesome. Stray Bullet, they were probably thinking of the fuel-injected 327 Corvette engines. Yeah. Steve Sadusky, Kiwi and Group. Ever hear of Total Seal piston rings? Opinions? Yeah, I've heard of them. They've been around forever. Total Seal and good quality rings. Yeah, good quality rings. I wouldn't. I'd be happy to run those. Yeah. Granddad's Junk. Oh, I've just done the video of the other CL Valiant 265 Hemi. Oh, cool. I have to go and watch that. Maybe I'll watch it after the show. Yeah, you guys, if you if you don't know what a CL Valiant looks like, and it's nothing like an American Valiant, I can promise you that. It's nothing like an American Valiant. Yeah, if you want to see something different, go and check out Granddad Junk's video. It's kind of cool. Todd Denier, go to the Buffalo Trace and try the White Dog. LOL, whiskey fresh from the still and not aged. That'll put hairs on your chest, I'm sure. Yes, I bet that's breathtaking, literally. Driveway of Misfits at Granddad's Jug. Is your wife going to let you drive either of them? Ooh, well, I mean, if he says yes, do we believe him? That's the question. Like, yeah, he may say yes, but like, will she? This is where we'd have to get her on to actually confirm it, I feel. Granddad's Junk. Yes, we have taken it for a drive down to Ross. I got to drive. Well, very nice. That's very generous of her to let you drive her toy. Very good. She's clearly a good woman. Josh Homan, I don't remember Continental ever being separate from Lincoln. No, I don't either. But then up until last night, I didn't remember, Mercury being separate from Comet, or Comet being separate from Mercury. So there you go. But yes, just things, and it's so long ago. We're really relying on memories of what other people have told us, kind of thing. Not many of us were around in like in the late 50s with a good, clear memory of what was going on. Todd Denier, what automotive innovation did Rambler invent that is still used today? The steering wheel? Seriously? I don't think Rambler invented the steering wheel. Surely not. Driveway of Misfits. I'm going to guess it was an Alpha engine. Yep, that could be too. Yep, for that 100 horsepower per litre. Stray Bullet. It's Japanese, really. 100 horsepower per litre. Okay, was it a motorbike engine? Like a 60 horsepower, 600cc engine, or 100 horsepower, 1,000 or something like that, or 1 litre. It's Japanese. Their car engines didn't make a lot of horsepower till a little bit later on. But there's always some weird thing that'll catch you out. So I'm guessing Stray Bullet is... Well, clearly he knows the answer, and it is a trick question, I would be guessing. Jeff R., do you enjoy knocking back a few cold beers after a hard day's work? Well, of course. Yes, absolutely I do. Absolutely I do. I'm not a huge beer drinker, but when it's hot, it's very nice to have a beer. Yeah. Beagle Bob, I think the 2.3 turbo and the Foxes might have a shot at the first 100 horsepower per litre. I think it happened before that, Beagle Bob, would be my guess. I don't know anything to actually back that up. This is where I need an assistant who can be off, off camera and Googling this stuff for me to make me look really intelligent. But I don't have that. So you just have to put up with the real me. Michael Welch, to be or not to be? That is the question. Well, yes, let's not go down the Shakespeare road. As wide and varied as our topics are, I'm not sure that I could do 2 hours of Shakespeare. Ugh. Captain Desmo, the Fuely 283 was not very popular simply for the fact that it was hard to tune. A lot of the plenums were used as doorstops. Yeah, but man, if you got one of those plenums now, there was some money. Like people are paying gold for fuel injection setups now, which is crazy how things reversed because they were just being thrown away back in the early 60s. They were just tossing the fuel injection out and putting carburetors back on. Funny how history repeats itself, isn't it? We were just talking about that at the beginning of the show, that people are taking off EFI, also electronic fuel injection systems, and going back to carburetors after having paid all the money for a Holly Sniper. So funny how history repeats itself, isn't it? Beagle Bob, only familiar with American cars. Fair enough, I get that too. Straight bullet, naturally aspirated. It was the Honda S2000. Huh. Okay. I know they were little screamers. So I guess you're meaning that this is in a factory production type engine, because the Cosworths that I was talking about, the BDAs, were a limited run. Not that limited. They made a lot of them, but they weren't factory production engines. They were a Ford short blocks with Cosworth heads on them, and they weren't stock Ford short blocks either. But it was basically a 2-litre Ford bottom end on it, and with all Cosworth top on it. But that was, and they were made for various forms of motorsport and high performance, very high performance road cars. I know they were up over 200, a few decades before the S2000. But you couldn't walk into a showroom and buy them. So interesting though. S2000. They're a valuable little car now. Those things, they're worth good money, from all accounts. Oh, hang on, the damn thing shot down the page again. Need to try and catch up. My wife is happy. I like them. She loves them. Mighty Val, she wants to make them wedding cars. They are exactly the same. Yeah, they'd be popular wedding cars. I know that. Yeah, you'd be able to rent them out. Go for it, man. Paul Funk, Captain Desmo, the meaning of life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it goes. Man, that is so true. That is very true. Yeah, mine's speeding up at a phenomenal rate. It's like the weeks are just going by in about 45 minutes. And it's like, what the hell just happened? Driveway of Misfits, happy wife, happy life. There you go. JR, station wagon. Oh, okay, so that Ford's a station wagon. Country sedan, I figured it was. Granddad's junk. I'm trying to convince her to let me put triple side draft Weber 45. Oh, no. Oh, that could be a tough ask. I mean, it would sound awesome. It really would. But I'm not sure it would... doesn't really gel with the wedding car vibe, But I mean, some gearheads are getting married, so that's what they'd want. They'd want that. Fitzgeralding, the meaning of life: go as fast as you can with internal combustion, of course. Absolutely, sir. Yes. Todd and I, country sedan was a galaxy-bodied wagon without the wood grain of the country Squire. Okay, huh. Galaxy, yep. Stray Bullet, the 50s mechanical fuel injection was a nightmare to work on. Yeah, I've heard that. And I'll tell you what, a car I know a tiny bit about is the Triumph, English Triumph. They brought out they had Triumph 2000s or 2.5s. They were 2.5 litre straight six, and they either had twin Stromberg carburetors on them, and some of them came out with PI, petrol injection. But they were mechanical and they were a nightmare. They were so unreliable. And back in New Zealand, people were taking the injection off those and putting the factory carb setup on them. You lost a little bit of power and you lost a little bit of throttle response and stuff like that. But at least when you turn the key, they started. Which is that's fairly important. What's under the Sea of Valiant seem to have an AMC influence. Yeah. I can see that. Driveway of Misfits. The Imperial was its own brand before they became Chrysler Imperials. Didn't know that either. I'm getting smarter by the minute thanks to you guys. It was awesome. Todd Denier, yes, Rambler invented the steering wheel. Okay, what year was that? The AMC Rambler are popular. There is a few around. There's a few around in New Zealand. They sold quite a few Ramblers into New Zealand. Straight bullet, it's not a trick. Granddad's Jake, my wife is a good southern farming stock. Great women. You can't buy them from the girly shop. I'm very lucky. Very cool. How long you guys been married? Stray bullet production engine. Fair enough. The S2000 had a 10K red line. Yeah, I've heard those sorts of numbers with those things. Wow, 10,000. Yeah, that's got to have a good valve train in it to do that. And put a warranty on it, because they would have had whatever the warranty was. But yeah, I'm sure it wasn't 100,000 miles, but they would have had, I guess, a 36,000 mile warranty on it or something like that. On a 10,000 RPM engine. That's fairly ballsy. Todd Denier, Granddad's junk. The first car I was hired to restore was a 64 Rambler Classic. Huh. Cool. Steve Sadusky, everyone, don't forget to give a like to Kiwis Live. Yes, please do. Please do. It does help. Every little bit helps. I appreciate it when you guys do that. What's on to be straight? It was before that with the Integra Type R, 1.8 litre, 195 horsepower. Huh. Okay. Well, Honda's definitely leading edge, certainly in the Japanese performance end of things. Honda's the leader there for sure. Nissan have got some pretty big, powerful engines, but Honda just keep banging them out, man. Gene Turner, the new 427 Vet in 69, $6,500. Whew. Yeah, that was a lot of car for that money, wasn't it? Stray bullet, that's a Honda too. What's on it? Well, yeah, Honda Type R, yeah. Integra. Stray bullet, Rambler used to be a car make, not just a model. I think it was always the make. Was there a car that was just a Rambler, or was it always a Rambler something? Granddad's junk, 29 years, married 29 years. Well done, brother. Well done. And she loves old cars. What a great girl. Rick Dempsey, replacing a vinyl top, what would you use to treat the rust? I tell you what I've found to be pretty good. Eastwood have a rust converter that you can brush on, spray on, roll on, whatever you want. And it dries, you can't put it over like loads of rust, but you kind of clean off the loose shit and you're painting this on, and it dries to like quite a almost black color, and which you can paint straight onto. You don't have to clean it. It doesn't leave any weird residue that stops paint sticking. So yeah, I'm quite a fan of that stuff. Eastwood rust converter. You can buy like a gallon jug of it, and you can go to town. You can put on a couple of coats, whatever you need to do. But it goes on kind of white, starts to get a bit purpley as you're brushing it on, and then as it dries, it turns black. Kind of a little bit like POR 15, but not. Starts off white though, and it does. It doesn't just lock in the rust like POR 15 does. It actually converts it. So I actually like that better than POR 15. In POR 15, you have to sand it before you top coat it because it does dry so hard and quite shiny, and paint doesn't stick to it. It'll lay down on it, but it'll flake off later. So yeah, it's whereas this rust converter of Eastwood's, basically you let it dry for the suggested time, and then you can just prime, like put a primer on it, whatever type of primer you need, high build or urethane, whatever you need, and start painting. Pops Mustang, please hit the like button. You may have to back out of the chat screen to find the like button. Oh, okay. Didn't realise that. Thanks for the info, Pops. Todd Denier, Stray Bullet. Yes, it started as Rambler. Okay, then it was changed to Jeffrey, and then went back to Rambler when it was bought out by Nash to start his auto-making company. Huh. Wow, that's a bit of history. Rambler was the company name. Okay. Rambler Rebel. Yeah, Rambler Rebels were popular in New Zealand. They sold, well, for an imported big American car, they were pretty darn popular. I think quite a few of them were 6 cylinders, weren't they, Grandad? Steve Sadusky, you are lucky, Grandad. My last girlfriend hated my old hot rods, so I got rid of her and kept my hot rods. Well, I'm glad to see you got that correct, sir. Well done. Yeah. Yep, if they don't like your hot rods, then, it's time to trade up. Paul Funk, didn't Nash and Rambler merge to become AMC? There's definitely a connection there. I'm not sure in what order it all happened. I'm really not too sure. Granddad's junk. Wife bought the 230 Plymouth for our anniversary. Wow, she really does love old cars, doesn't she? It's definitely a keeper. Todd Denier, Rambler Rebel was introduced in 57 as a performance 4-door sedan. Huh. I don't know whether you responded, Todd, but yeah, what year did Rambler come up with the steering wheel? I mean, I can remember. I've seen cars with steering wheels from the 1910, 1905, and stuff like that had steering wheels with. Yeah, you confused me there. I'm stumbling. Beagle Bob, watched the Comet video with my wife. She was disappointed Keith didn't make an appearance. Yeah, I thought about it and then forgot about it. I was like, I'm having very senior moments with my brain. I think of all the things I should do, and then it all kind of gets lost, and I do something else. So I will try and remember to put Kev in the next video. I'm not sure what the next video is actually. Because we've kind of worked through a lot of our smaller projects now. So it's going to be back on, actually tomorrow, is going to be back on that red fastback Mustang. I'm going to start putting the AC in that. So probably do a video on the AC. It's a vintage year, and it's their latest kind of offering. They've they've given the traditional old vintage air unit, the under dash, not under dash, behind the dash unit, quite a facelift, and they've retooled it, redone quite a few things on it. It's pretty slick, actually. So I'm going to try and make a reasonably in-depth video on that. Granddad's junk. The ones I've seen here, most were 6s. Yeah, I remember a few of them. I think had the 304 V8, but not many. But I mean, because gas was expensive. Well, is expensive in New Zealand. Always was expensive in New Zealand. Paul Todd denied Nash and Hudson merged to form AMC. So who swallowed up Rambler? Oh, here we go. Nash, Rambler, and Packard all merged, I believe. Stray bullet. I know Rambler got swallowed up by somebody, and obviously Packard, they bit the dust. Jeff R. Okay, bourbon with muesli. Bourbon with muesli wasn't the best breakfast option. Someone must have tried bourbon grits. I'm sure they must have done. Yes, you're probably right. Bourbon and muesli. Paul Funk, that's right. I knew Hudson was in there somewhere. A lot of cars got swallowed up, man, around that era. A lot of cars. Todd denies steering wheel was invented by Rambler in 1900. I didn't realize Rambler existed in 1900. Like what? I'm not arguing the point. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Like in what capacity were they around in 1900? Is that the guy with the Rambler name invented the steering wheel, or was Rambler a company then, or Granddad's junk? Rambler was a passenger on the Ark. Well, just about in 1900. In my head, I was thinking Rambler hadn't been around really much before the 50s, if at all before the 50s, as a car making company. I can't remember of any. I don't recall any 40s, 1940s something Ramblers. But you get into that 30s, 40s territory. That's definitely not my strong point. Yeah, Paul Funk, Packard merged with Studebaker, and Studebaker eventually merged with Chevrolet. Because I had a 66 Studebaker Cruiser that came factory with a 283, and believe it or not, the transmission was a Torque Flight. A 283 in front of a Torque Flight. So they did some crossbreeding, interbreeding, back at then. Beagle Bob, has the Sunbeam had a full showing at any point? No, it has not. I've been kind of keeping that off to one side and not. Obviously, you guys have been seeing it in the background of a bunch of other shots, but it's yet to have its own dedicated video. Hopefully, I'm really trying to get that red fastback out the door because it's parked where the Sunbeam needs to go to get into its next stage of being built. So I'm trying to get that red one out the door, which it just needs AC and a few loose ends tidied up. Once the AC goes in, the interior can go back in, and So hopefully within the next what's the number? Couple of months, maybe less. We'll actually kind of attack that car and dig into it, and have an introduction video on it, and which sounds a bit grand, doesn't it? But actually have a walk around it and explain the plans and what we're going to do, that kind of thing. But there's I don't want to do a video on it like I'm starting it and then park it back in the corner and leave it for another 3 months, and then everyone's going, what's happening with the Sunbeam? But I mean, you guys ask what's happening with it anyway, so yeah. But that'll be a fun little build. That'll be a fun little build, but you'll have to wait for the video to get all the details. Still haven't decided on an engine for it yet, whether I'm going to go LS, and that'll bring shrieks from a few of you, I know, or go with the small block Ford. I'd like to put an all aluminum engine in it, which is what makes the LS tempting, because it's pretty straightforward to get an aluminum block LS. Aluminum block small block Fords, however, are expensive. Like, I think the block's about $8,000. So it's like, ooh, that's, to save £100, $8,000. That, I'm not sure about. It's like, not sure of the bang for your buck at that at $8,000 for £100. So anyway, but what else have we got? Packard and Studebaker merged. Nass and Hudson was a different merger. Okay. Driveway misfit. Ken's been very camera shy as of late, ever since that CCTV footage of him went viral. Redacted for decency. There you go. As I explained to someone the other day, someone asked that on the comments of that Comet video. In the comments on the Comet video about Kev, and I said, well, he's been in a rehab centre trying to dry out, and but the Kias, which is another unique New Zealand bird, keeps sneaking in bourbon to him, so he keeps having a relapse. So we can get the Kias straightened out. We we might get them back soon. Lower Man's Vintage Garage. Studebaker merged with Packard. Yeah. I don't think Studebaker became AMC. No, Stray Bullet. I don't believe that. I know there was a connection with Packard. And then, like I say, in the 60s, they merged with General Motors or Chevrolet. But that one I am confident about. I know that Studebaker went down the Chevrolet road. And that's why those little two-door sports, Avantis and stuff, they all had GM mechanicals because of that GM connection. Rambler became Nash and was brought back decades later as a model of Nash. Okay. Stray Bullet, they were making horseless carriages. Yeah, well, so Rambler made horseless carriages. Wow. I had no idea the company was that old. I had no idea. If you asked me prior to this, if you'd asked me when the company Rambler started, I would have said 50s, late 40s maybe. It's really interesting. Paul Funk, Packard was the only luxury car builder to survive the Great Depression. Oh, excuse me, guys. Oh. Studebaker was building cars with other companies' parts at the end. Yeah. It was definitely a demise of Studebaker. Lower Man's Vintage. In those days, AMC was so cash poor they were sourcing parts from the big three. Yep. Stray Bullet Cadillac survived. Well, that's true. They did, didn't they? That's true. Paul Funk, Studebaker went away in 66. Yeah, well, I owned a 66 Studebaker Cruiser. So, yeah, I guess that was the last year of them. Stray Bullet, lots of aluminum 4.6 litres out there, Kiwi. That's very true. That's very true. But can you imagine trying to shoehorn a massively wide 4.6, because they are wide, into the engine bay of a Sunbeam? No. There was a reason Shelby chose the Windsor to go in that car, and that's because the Windsor is one of the narrower V8s around. Not quite the shortest, but certainly one of the narrower ones. And there's not a lot of width. They're a narrow little car. So, yeah. But, yeah, the 4.6, I even flirted with the idea of flirted, like, briefly, with a Coyote. But, yeah, just too big. I mean, they fill up a Mustang engine bay if you take the shock towers out. And that's way, way bigger than the engine bay in a Sunbeam. So much as I'd like to put a Coyote, I think it would be great, but you'd really have to. The only way you'd do it would be to like space frame the car, and that's really not the goal, you know. And even then, it would be difficult and very hard to work on. And that's those 4.6s in the Coyotes are massive engines. Beagle Bob, yeah, 4.6 might be too wide. Not really, might be. It just is too wide. Alan Shildroff, boats had steering wheels in the 1700s. I think they call it a helm, didn't they? Man the helm. Yeah, something like that. Todd denies. Studebaker Corp continued on for decades after stopping building cars in 1966. They continued with STP ore treatment, McCullough, Paxton Supercharger, and Gravely lawn equipment and others. Wow. Wow. You've either got a huge amount of storage space in your brain, Todd, or you're very good on Googling shit. I'm not sure which. But either way, you're the man of 1,000 answers. Good for you, man. It's great to have you here. That's fascinating stuff. And if you've got all that committed to memory, good for you, man. Todd denied Studebaker had nothing to do with AMC. I didn't think they did. Steve Sadusky, I thought Jaguars had the Chevy 283. I'm not sure. 283s may have been put in Jaguars, but not by Jaguar. Not by Jaguar, no. Stray Bullet, what was the first airplane to have a steering wheel? Yeah, that's a trick question. No. Paul Funk, standalone luxury maker. Okay, fair enough. Yep. Driveway of Misfits, like a real full wheel or a yoke. Told you know, what became Cadillac was started by Henry Ford, but he had a falling out with his investors. The 1903 Ford and the 1903 Cadillac look virtually identical. Wow. Stray Bullet, Rolls-Royce. Yep, another good question. That's a standalone company. And they were going, long before and still are going, before the Great Depression. Oh, I see what you're asking, Chris. Yeah, like a real full steering wheel or a yoke. Oh, this is on the plane. Yeah, they're usually just like two handles kind of that you push in and out, and not really a wheel. You didn't, I don't think the planes were like 3 turns from lock to lock. Stray Bullet, a full steering wheel. There you go. Don't deny I'm terrible at Googling. Oh, yes, I feel your pain, sir. I feel your pain. So, wow. You've got a lot of information stored in that head of yours, sir. I'm impressed. Paul Funk, I also think Studebaker built engines for the B-17 bomber. Well, it's not surprising when you think about it, because all the car makers basically stopped making cars during the war, and they had to, pitch in to the war effort. So they were, those car factories were building, parts complete. It was all, pointed at the war effort. So. The fact that Studebaker chipped into the war effort is, when you think about it, is really not surprising. It's just a matter, I guess they were putting their hand up and say, well, we can make this, and the other company go, well, we can make that. Yeah. So they all actually work together. It's a fanciful thought these days, isn't it? But the country, and not just car makers, but the country worked together much better than it is today, to the war effort. Nothing like a war to unite a country. But let's not go down too far down that road. J Rose, I drove a 63 Studebaker Avanti in high school, supercharged 289. Nice. Borg Warner T10. Borg Warner T10 automatic? Oh, hang on. Borg Warner T10's a manual. Okay. That's confusing. No GM until the Avanti 2 came out after Stude went belly up. Okay. But the 289 was not a 289 Ford motor. And it's the same cubic inches as the Mustang motor. And all the other cars, all the other Fords it went into, but 289 is kind of synonymous with Mustang. But that 289 Studebaker motor was not, and not really even like a 289 Ford. I'm not sure that's what you were meaning or not, but I'm just saying. Vilefly. Welcome along, Vilefly, clinging to a pork chop. Well, there you go. Stray bullet. I'm going to guess a World War I bomber of some sort. Oh, for the full steering wheel? Gosh, who knows? Who knows? Jeff R. Does anyone transplant Chev engines into Buicks? It's been done. I mean, yeah, especially LSs, they've been put into everything. And small block Chevys. Is that what you're meaning? Like just like sort of more private individuals or hot rod shops, transferring Chevys into Buicks? Oh, yeah, I think that's happened a lot. Paul Funk, Rolls Royce is not American. Oh, okay. I missed. I didn't read. Maybe didn't read properly, but I didn't realise you were qualifying that with American luxury cars. Vilefly, Jeff R. That's been done for years. The starter is on the opposite side. Yeah. I just worked the other week, but I couldn't video it. But I was working on a GTO that had an LS in it, and the starter motor's on the opposite side to the Pontiac engine. Packard built Rolls-Royce Merlin engines under license and built them faster and better than RR did. There you go. Granddad's junk. That's how Holden got started. How do you mean, bud? How did Holden get started? That was a GM thing. That Stray bullet. How about Lincoln? Well, Lincoln was part of Ford. Really, was under the Ford umbrella. And Paul's talking about standalone car manufacturers. Paul Funk. I flew on a B-17 called Aluminum Overcast back in 2007. What a cool name. Aluminum Overcast. That's a cool name. Beagle Bob, feel like Studebaker made some supercharged 12-cylinder aircraft engine. That'd be cool. Driveway of misfits. I'm very jealous. I've been in a B-17 but never flew in one. I'm not even sure I've been in a B-17. Might have done. I've been to a few airplane museums. I went to a cool one up in where was it? Up in Washington. Not Tacoma. Oh God, I can't remember the name. It was a place. They had these huge hangars, and they'd been made. Which were a World War effort building these hangars. They put the airships in these hangars. I can't remember. It was in Washington. The name eludes me. But yeah, they built these giant hangars for the airships, which would go up and like Coast Guard patrol and patrol the coast of America. And obviously, after the war, the airships went by the wayside, and now they're being used for a huge aircraft museum. The doors on this, because they're like half round hangars, and the doors that roll open are just absolutely massive. How on earth you could roll them is kind of big as belief, really. That's a cool place. If I remember it, I'll say it, but it's not coming to me right now. But one of you guys might know what I'm talking about up in Washington. It's pretty big. It's a fairly big thing. I mean, if you're into aircraft, you probably should know what I'm talking about. The Lower Man's Vintage Garage. Good night, all. See you next time. Hey, good night, man. Thanks for dropping in. Fun as always. Stray bullet. The first airplane to use a steering wheel was a Deeper Dozen. I don't even know how to pronounce that, and certainly haven't heard of it before. Huh? Very cool. Todd and I, what was the difference between the American-built and British-built Rolls-Royce until 1927? American-built had red on their emblems, and the British-built had black emblems. I didn't know they built Rolls-Royces in America. Wow, I'm going into like factual overload tonight. I'm gonna have to actually read the comments again on another day, because there's too much info. It's starting to leak out the ears. Stray bullet. Packard built their own marine engines that powered PT boats. Yeah, weren't they awesome? The old PT boats. They were awesome boats. The Stu 289 had nothing to do with Ford nor Chevy. No, they did not. They were their own engine, and they were quite a good performer too. The 289 Studebaker made more power than the 289 Ford, I believe. Granddad's Junk. Holden made machinery for the war effort. Then in 1947, I think they started making cars. Oh, wow. Very cool. I did not know that. It stands to reason. It'd be unlikely for someone to just go, I'm going to start a company making cars, and like just with a completely blank sheet of paper. When you think about it, they would logically have some kind of machine making background or division of their company, and then then someone could see the value and go, okay, well, making all this stuff, why don't we make a car as well? Makes sense. Todd and I, when Pierce Arrow went bankrupt and was liquidated in the 1930s, American LaFrance bought the rights and the equipment to build the V12 engines to use in their fire trucks into the 50s. LaFrance fire engines, of course. So that was a Pierce Arrow engine in the LaFrance. Wow. That's cool. Big or Bob, you feel tiny when you see a B-52 in a hangar. Don't think I've ever seen a B-52 in person. I don't think. But from all accounts, they're absolutely gigantic. Vilefly. Started my week with a bone stock 68 Camaro 327 engine. It was very stress relieving, just fixing leaks. Customer was overjoyed that I had some idea of what I was doing. Well, yeah. That's today's world. So there's not many of us that do know what they're doing when it comes to these old cars. There's not many of us left. So which is concerning for the future. Who is going to fix these things? Well, I guess someone will step up and figure it out. Paul Funk, B-17s are loud. The sound of four Wright Cyclone engines is something forever etched in my memory. Flew out of Centennial Airport and flew over Castle Rock and back. Wow, that's cool. Stray bullet, Deeper Dozen. Okay, that's how you pronounce it. All right. I wasn't too far away. Cool. Driveway of Misfits. Kaiser made steel and ships, then got into cars after the war. Huh. Yep. Granddad's Jug. Guys, welcome to the History Channel. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. There's so much. I mean, it's just a massive, massive industry that we have a passion in, and so much went on. So much went on. Yeah, no one's even mentioned Tucker's. Look at Tucker. That was great movie, by the way. If you haven't seen it, you need to. But yeah, Tucker was it's a great story. But that's funny, Granddad's joke. That was very witty. Todd denies Studebaker tested their engines at 45,000 RPM, 4,500 RPM for 24 hours. And after that test, they ran them at full throttle for another 24 hours. If it held up, it went into production. Really? Full throttle for 24 hours? Whew. Wow, that's a lot. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Chris Triumph, hello. How are you, mate? Good to have you along. We're fairly deep into the show now. We've got about 25 minutes left, but hey, good to have you, man. 69 Coronet. B-52s used to fly over my house going to the local airbase. Shook the whole neighborhood. Yeah, I bet it did. It's actually kind of beggars belief how they fly. How they got off the ground is kind of denies, goes against physics, really. They just look so big and heavy. And that's just on video footage I've seen of them, but they did fly. They got up in the air and they were a key part of the war effort, multiple different war efforts. David Tyree, Holden started in 1856 as a saddlery company, and then by 20s was a coach builder by the 1920s. Wow. That's awesome. I had no idea. Kaiser also, Todd Deno again, Kaiser also created the concrete Liberty ships of World War II. Wow. Todd Deno, Liberty ships were actually a British design that Kaiser built. Okay. Volfly, I would buy even a fake Tucker if I could. There's a guy building them, like from scratch. I'm not sure where. Here in the States somewhere. There's a guy I've met, but I met him how long ago? 12 years ago, something like that. And they lined themselves up with one of Tucker's descendants, like a great grandson or something like that, and they've got the approval to actually remake the cars, and they're actually making or in the process of starting. I'm not sure whether they've actually got any out the door yet, but they're making. I guess you could say a replica, but I think they're kind of saying that really these are new Tuckers. And there's a few changes, to bring them up with some more modern kind of technology in them. But yeah, they look just like a Tucker. Trying to remember Steve that works with me. He knows the guy. Again, gone. Too much bourbon. But yeah, Google who's building the Tucker torpedo now. And there's been a few fiberglass ones and mock-ups kind of made over the years, but this guy's actually making metal-bodied ones, and aligned with the Tucker family, the original Tucker family. So that'd be kind of cool. Yeah. What have we got here? Todd Denaya, Kaiser also created the concrete Liberty ships of World War II. Okay. I already read that one. Stray Bullet, we never had any concrete Liberty ships, Todd. They had problems enough with the steel Liberty ships breaking in half. Yeah, it's a little brittle, isn't it, concrete? Even with reinforcing. Steve Sadusky, isn't it true that all automakers contributed to making equipment for the military during World War I and World War II? Yes, I believe that is absolutely true. They certainly weren't making cars. You couldn't get metal. You couldn't get steel to be making cars. So yeah, all their efforts when it went into the war effort. And people couldn't buy new cars for, well, I don't know, I'm not sure how long it was, 4, 5, 6 years. But that's okay too. You can get by without a new car for a few years if you have to. And back then they had to. Chris Triumph, a woman that worked at my local store tested Spitfires from Windsor, Ontario, out over Lake Huron during the war. Wow. That's amazing. There wasn't too many female pilots back then. There really wasn't. Women weren't really, back in that era, women weren't really looked on as quite as equal as they are today. Wow, she would have been an amazing lady. That's cool. Steve Sadusky, true. Well, Ford's war output during World War II was greater than the entire war output of Italy. Wow, really? All these little facts and numbers and figures. It's like, wow, where do you guys get all this stuff from? Todd Denier, stray bullet. We certainly did have concrete Liberty ships. Okay. Steve Osgood. Someone say bourbon. Bourbon. We're getting a bit low, but hey, we've only got 20 minutes, so I'll make it last. Paul Funk, B-24 bombers were built in one of the Ford's plants. River Rouge, maybe. Paul Funk, yep. River Rouge, one bomber. Wow, really? One bomber every 62 minutes? B-24 bomber? Every 62 minutes? Wow. That's amazing. 62 minutes. Wow, that's hard to believe. Alan Shildroff, have you ever used Mustangs to fear body panels for Coyote engines and trans? No. I'm in process of building a Mustang right now in the shop, and I've done some videos on it, Project Swiss Cheese, and we're putting Mustangs to fear stuff in there. And the guy had their inner fenders for the Coyote swap. And we decided not to use them. We've actually gone with the stock inner fenders, and then like the Heights Mustang 2, like little panels that cover where the shock tower used to go, because the Mustang Sophia ones were just their chassis, that 3/4 chassis they do, I'm super impressed with, and everything I've seen of theirs so far, with the exception of those panels, is really good. But that panel, those inner fender panels, they're just a bit homemade looking, I'll be honest, and they are simply done on a bead roller. And like you could honestly make your own ones if you just buy yourself $150 bead rollers. You can make your own. Now the trans, I'm not so sure about. We haven't swung the engine and trans into this car yet, but supposedly you don't have to modify the trans tunnel. So I'm not sure what the body panels for Coyote engines and trans. Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. I'm probably not reading it quite right. The body panels, they don't supply a different tunnel or anything for it, because supposedly you don't need it. But those inner fenders that you do to get rid of the factory ones and the shock towers, they just weren't. Honestly, they just really weren't up to par. And I don't like to rag on their stuff because I'm actually pretty impressed with it. But that was like, not the best. Parked up garage, bourbon helps. Well, bourbon helps most things, buddy. Yeah, can't argue with that. Stray bullet, you couldn't buy a new American car after 1941. All of the auto manufacturers turned their production to the World War II effort. So how many years were they? 41? When did cars come back online again? I think it was 46, wasn't it? They started making cars again. So yeah, the cars were out of production for 5 years, at least 5 years. It was either 46 or 47, I think, that they started making cars again. David Tyree, concrete Liberty ships were not self-propelled. They were mostly used as barges. Huh. Chris Tribe, Bourbon Time. I agree wholeheartedly. Fish Geraldine, I'm about halfway between Robbins and Moody Air Force bases. I see all kinds of military craft fly over. Ospreys, Black Hawks, all kinds of jets. Not a bad place to live, mate. Not a bad place to live, especially if you're an airplane or a military plane buff. It'd be great. Josh Homan, almost every company turned their production to the war effort. Yeah. I tell you what, for all the terrible things war is, it stimulates an economy. Makes things move. That hangar that I was talking about, those two big hangars that have been converted into an airplane museum. When they had just one of these huge hangars, and then Pearl Harbor happened. So they decided they needed more airships and more security, I guess, along the west coast. So they built another hangar, and if memory serves me right, they built this huge, massive hangar. It's truly massive, even by today's standards. And they built it in 90 days. You can't get a permit pulled in 90 days now. You can't even pray to get a permit pulled in 90 days. And it'll take you a month to get an inspector out to look at it once the permit. But it's amazing. In those situations, they got it. They just all they had was some grassy field, and it became this giant hangar with an airship in it in 90 days. So yeah, you push all that bullshit aside that we have to do these days to build anything, or HOAs, or all that red tape bullshit that we have today. Back then they built this massive structure in 90 days. I don't imagine there was any OSHA inspectors there saying, "Oh, you can't do that." You can't be up that ladder that high. That won't do. None of that. It's like, Billy Bob, we need that up there. Okay. And, the shit got done. And that, I think, was a pretty cool thing. What do we got? Granddad's junk, we are all autistic. Well, yeah, I think you might be right there. Yeah, to some level, huh? Like, I think there's a level of it. Functioning autistics. That's what we'll call the group, the functioning autistics. Todd Denier, during World War II, women pilots were common, transporting planes from the assembly plants to the military bases around America. Well, that makes sense, because all the men were away fighting, right? I guess they didn't have a whole lot of guys like just milling around waiting to fly a plane, transporting them. They were all out there bombing the shit out of people. So okay, maybe that's a perception of mine that's flawed. It makes sense. Women did a hell of a lot of stuff during the war that they never did before. It was probably good for their, women's equality drive, really, because it gave them the chance to actually show that they could do the same shit we can. If a woman could drive a car, which they can, okay, all the jokes aside, I know there's a million women driver jokes, but they drive quite well as we do, really. So why couldn't they fly a plane? Johnny C, I think the scrap metal drives eliminated many future classics too. Yeah, people talk about what was it that old Obama did, that cash for clunkers drive. I imagine that the war drive rounded up a lot of 20, 30-year-old cars from that were 20, 30 years old in 1941. That probably swallowed up a lot of those old cars that probably would have survived otherwise. But something has to give, doesn't it? Andy Nicol, haven't had much to say this evening. I've been hard at work repairing a classical guitar. Well, mate, that's fine. As long as you're here and listening and you can chime in just as much as you've got time to do, that's all good. What kind of classical guitar is it? And do you repair the finish or do you actually repair the structure? Chris Triumph, Willow Run pumped out lots of bombers. I'm not familiar with Willow Run or even what it is. Todd Denio, you could buy 1942 vehicles for the first few months before they stopped civilian production. And when did it kick in again, Todd? Oh, there we go. Look, go down the page and read. That'll help. Cars resumed production in 46. I thought it was 1946. Hey, I've got something right. That's cool. Andy Nicol, Dad was a navigator in a Lancaster bomber in World War II. Wow. That's cool. So he saw some things that you don't really want to see. Well, that's cool. He was a hero. B-24, Driveway of Misfits. B-24 production was Willow Run, not River Rouge. Oh, okay. Stray Bullet, a bunch of antique autos were lost to the scrap drives. Luckily, people were already starting to collect the early cars, so some of them were saved. Yeah, well, I mean, I remember seeing stories of, like in England, particularly because we got more English TV in New Zealand. But back in the day, they were rounding up like even pots and pans from the private homes. Like if you don't need 3 fry pans, give us 2 for the war effort. And and people would cut back to like 1 pot for the family or 2 pots for the family instead of 6, or stuff like that. Anything that was made of metal was kind of people were being pushed to give it. I'm not sure whether they were able to sell them or whether they just had to donate them or give them or whatever. But in England, they were getting metal from wherever they could get it, and it wasn't like nothing was really too small. It didn't have to be a car. It could be, like I said, pots and pans, cutlery, anything was being all because you couldn't just email overseas and get a lump of iron ore delivered. That's not how the war worked. Well, you guys know that. Paul Funk, I've been inside a B-24 bomber, but not have flown in one. Totally different than a B-17. And from what I understand, not as smooth as a B-17. Huh. Chris Triumph, Andy Nicol, I had the honour of flying in Lancaster. That would be an experience, I'm sure. That would be pretty amazing. Civilian auto, Todd saying civilian auto production in America ended in February 1942. Wow. So if you owned a car, a 1942 whatever it was, Chev, Ford, Studebaker, whatever it was, that's a pretty rare car. That's a pretty rare car if they were only building them for 2 months. And a lot of those cars and trucks went to the military. Yeah. Oh, you mean from the first 2 months? Yeah, probably. Steve Sadusky, Rudolph Diesel contributed his invention of the diesel engine for the American and British submarines during the war. He was originally from Germany, born there. Wow. Yeah, I've heard the name Rudolph Diesel before, but I didn't realise. Okay, I didn't realise it didn't have the whole story. That's cool. Oh, shut up. Shut up the page. Hit the button once too many times. Rob Ida, Vilefly. Looks like Rob Ida's Tucker reproduction will run about 100. That's the name I couldn't remember. Rob Ida. I met him through that Search and Restore TV show that you can watch on YouTube now. If you guys want to get a look at me from how long ago, 12, 14 years ago, go take a look on Search and Restore. I was on, they built a Hudson, and I was part of that build, and they built a Barracuda, Plymouth Barracuda, and I was part of that build as well. But that was a few years ago. I wasn't quite as grey and probably not quite as fat, but hey, that's life. Yeah, let's try and get this back up to where I dropped off. There we go. Driveway of Misfits. Read up on GM's work redeveloping US weapons prior to our entry into World War II. They got us prepped for mass production big time. Interesting. GM did that. Wow. Yeah, Vilefly. Looks like Rob, 150. Uses a North Star engine, cradle and driveline in the rear. Okay, so the front-wheel drive North Star Cadillac engine. Engine and cradle driveline in the rear. Makes sense. Chris Triumph, Rosie the Riveter. I remember that. They were posters, weren't they? Encouraging women to get into the workforce. Yeah, I remember Rosie the Riveter. That's cool. Yeah, that's not something that's gone through my mind for longer than I care to remember. But yeah, I remember that. Vilefly has been known to be wrong before. Yeah, haven't we all, mate? Josh Homan, women are actually better drivers than men. Just ask any one of them, they'll tell you. They're definitely better backseat drivers than men, or better, worse, depending how you look at it. I remember seeing one of those meme things, and it said one of the key differences between men and women is men can enjoy a drive in a car from the passenger seat. So that's my little joke for the day. Max level, the WASP, women airfare service pilots flew millions of miles, delivered most of the planes. Meanwhile, Boston gas $2.79 a gallon this week. Great show, Kiwi. It's been an interesting night, I got to say. I've learned more tonight than I think in the previous half a dozen shows. It's been very cool. And gosh, we've got 4 minutes to go. $2.79 is cheap, by the way. That's a lot cheaper than it is here. We're still in the, I think, $3.69. So we're almost $1 dearer than you guys. And you're in New York. Or Boston, I'm sorry. Granddad's Junk, have any of you guys seen the new Crocker motorcycles being made? No, never heard of it. Who and where are they being made? Steve Sadusky, today's diesel engine still holds the basic concept of Rudolf Diesel's invention. He never got the recognition he deserves, but we still use his last name. Very true. Chris Triumph had a 1914 Model T. I missed that car. Yeah, I bet you do. Todd Denay, my dad was in the Army Air Corps in World War II. Very cool. Hang on, what's someone saying there? Oh, yeah, it won't go down. What are you doing? Hang on, guys. Stray Bullet, how does Kiwi not know about Willow Run? I don't know, mate. I don't know. I guess when you grow up on the other side of the world, the bottom of the world, you miss out on a bit of that stuff. Josh Homan, out of necessity, the 46 cars were slightly revamped 42s. Yeah, yep, that's right. What's the other little fun facts about them. They started, I think, was it was either in 42 or like 41 or 46 that they stopped chroming a lot of stuff because of the shortage of chrome, or the need of chrome for other stuff. So quite a few of the American cars, like bumpers were painted, grills were painted, stuff like that. Don't quite remember the whole story, but there was something about that, that the war affected, stopping the production of the cars, but at not quite sure of the date before or after, but yeah, that you couldn't get chrome bling on your cars for a while there. But yeah, 46 looks very much like a 41 when regardless of who was building them. Yeah. Andy Nickel, whole damn guitar LOI, build guitars and repair. I specialise in the really broke guitars. This one I removed the fingerboard in order to shim the neck angle. Remove the fingerboard in order to shim the neck angle. Okay. I'm going to pretend I know exactly what you mean, but yeah, I really don't. Driveway of Misfits. My great uncle was a B-24 pilot and my wife's grandfather was a B-17 co-pilot in the bloody 100th bomb group. Wow. Different times, hey guys. Different times. What those people went through, was be pondering a little bit every now and again, just for how kind of, as much as we gripe about what's going on in politics now, and we may be looking at I don't know, war-wise, but life's pretty good, really. Beagle Bob, technically got my Mustang to fire off last night if you count a backfire. That's the first time this thing has made a noise since moving to standalone ECU. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, mate, I wish I could give you some advice, but yeah, I really can't. My advice would consist of put a carburetor on it, which I'm sure you don't want to do. But I mean, there'll be something. Yeah, you just need to find someone who's got some smart, like someone like Dr. Art could probably figure it out. I mean, this Pontiac that I was working on that had the had the Holly Terminator on the LS, and that wouldn't fire. That would not fire. If you squirted ether down it, it would fire. It would fire off and run, until the ether ran out. So it wasn't getting fuel. But that turned out to be that the people that put it together neglected to put a fuel pressure regulator on it. They did put a return line in the system, but no fuel pressure regulator. And so it was as soon as we went, there's no fuel. What's the fuel pressure? What's the fuel pressure been set at? So we're looking, and it's like, well, the fuel pressure's not been set because there's nothing to set it with. So that was the problem with that car. So it probably doesn't help you, but there is a little bit of setting up to do with those things as far as size of engine, size of cam. Certainly on the LS, you had to choose your reluctor wheel. How was it, 24 tooth, 58 tooth, whatever tooth count there. There's several tooth counts that the LSs come with. And all that stuff has to be right. And we were having trouble with this one. We would put information in and hit save and then go back to the main screen and your change was gone. So, they're computers and they do computer shit like your laptop does to you. Your laptop does things that in theory it shouldn't be able to do, but it does. The ECU systems are the same. So I wish I could help you. You could maybe reach out to Dr. Art on one of his chats and see if he can help you. He's pretty good on that stuff. Beagle Bob Mega Squirt. Okay. Now I've heard of Mega Squirt, but I'm not. That's all I've heard of it. I don't know whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. I really don't. But yeah, if you haven't got all your ducks in a row, the right information inputted into the computer and actually saved by the computer. So I don't mean saved by you hitting the save button. I mean it actually did save to the computer memory. Because that's one of the things this Pontiac was doing to us, not saving correctly. If that's any help. Stray bullet, Rudolph Diesel mysteriously disappeared. I do vaguely remember something about that. Andy Nickel, the only time I heard Dad talk about the war was when a neighbour kid interviewed him for a social studies paper. Dad was a teacher and a school principal. Yeah, there's a handful of people that like to talk about their war experience, but it seems to be, for the most part, not many people really want to talk about it, and you can only wonder as to why. But yeah, they paid a price. You know, the ones that came home uninjured still paid a price. And obviously the ones that didn't come home paid the ultimate price. But yeah, Chris Triumph, bourbon time. I think you're right. Mine needs a freshen up. So, and we've rambled through to 9:04, so it's kind of my bedtime, guys. I'm going to read what you're saying here later, Beagle, and see it, and I'll reach out to you if I can shed any light on it. But yeah, it's really not my strong point, but I'll try. Paul Funk, my grandfather never talked about the war. Yeah, that's an often repeated theme. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, it's time to go. Thank you guys so much for all your input tonight. I mean, I've just, I feel like you guys all been inputting into me, and like I've been learning so much tonight. It's been awesome. So yeah, but I mean, I guess everyone also listening as well. Well, not just me, but Todd, thanks for all your input. Stray Bullet, Beagle Bob. All you guys that were putting in a lot tonight, I appreciate it. It made it very interesting. So all of you, if I've missed a name, sorry, but there's a bunch of you inputting a lot here tonight. So thank you for that. Thank you for being part of the show. I know I've enjoyed it, and I'm going to go to bed, get up and attack this red Mustang and try and get it out of my shop so I can play with my toys. That's the plan. All right, guys. Well, as the official shit show supervisor, I am going to sign off, and I will see you next week. Have a great one. Get out there and work on your cars and have some fun. See you guys. Take it easy.